What's going on, everybody? Ronnie DiMaggio here, product specialist at BMW of Morristown, and in today's video we are going to be doing a very thorough tour of every single control and every single button in this 2024 BMW X5. So we've actually already done a video very similar to this, but with a 2022 and with an X3. You guys seem to really enjoy that video, so we're going to do it again, but this time with a 2024 and an X5. So like the title suggests, we are going to press every single button in this X5 to give you all a very good idea and a thorough tour of what every button, every hardware switch, every little thing that you can press and pull and switch in this X5, what it all does. So with that said, let's get started on the driver's door panel. All right, so we've moved outside and we've switched to the handheld camera, aka my iPhone, for the next couple portions of this video. Just seems to make more sense. We're gonna start outside with the key because there's buttons on the key. You press the BMW logo to lock, unlock, pop the trunk, see that go up, and then the panic button will turn on the alarm. So let's hop inside of the X5 and we'll start by talking about the buttons on the driver's door panel. We moved outside here so that I could actually start the car up, wake up all the systems, and you guys can actually see what everything does. So let's go ahead and close our rear tailgate, and that will be the first button we talk about. So this button will turn on, close or open the tailgate of the X5 from the interior of the car, which is definitely a handy feature to have access to. So push it down to open, pull it up to close. Moving down the buttons on the driver's door panel, we have our mirror controls. So all of these three buttons here all control the exterior side mirror. So this button here folds the mirrors in or out. This button controls which mirror you're adjusting when you use this circular pad to adjust your mirror. So click it over to the left. Hopefully you guys can see the mirror. Okay, let's try to clear that water. So click it over to, oh, but we're gonna hear the weed whackers. I regret that. Click it over to the left to control the left mirror when you use this button. So you can go up, down, left, and right. Click it over to the right, and now you're adjusting your right side mirror. Now there is a hidden feature with this button. If you push it over to the left, it will cause that side mirror, see if we can see here, to fold down when we put the car in reverse to let you view a curb or a parking line, as you can see there when you're parking. So click it over to the left if you do want that to happen. Keep it clicked over to the right if you don't want that mirror to fold down when you put the car in reverse. Moving down our door panel here, we have our 4 window switches. Obviously these are all one-touch automatic, back and front, and then you have your lockout for the back windows. So if you don't want your back passengers opening their windows, you press that button and then your rear window switch back there will not work. Moving up a little bit, we have our lock and unlock, which do exactly what you'd expect. You have your door handle here, which you just pull once to open up your door. That is unique to newer BMWs. Older ones you used to have to pull twice to get the door to open if the door is locked. Up here we have our memory seats, so you can press set, and then number 1 or number 2 to set your memory seat, and we'll talk about the seat controls in just a second. We have this little button with a picture of a seat and a 2 on it, as you can see there. Press that and then move your driver's seat controls here, and you'll see it will actually move the passenger seat. This is a really nice feature for specifically families or perhaps those chauffeur-driven X5s where you have a passenger in the back right and they want a little bit more space. You don't have to reach all the way over to adjust that seat. You can just move this up a little bit and increase your rear leg room pretty easily from the driver's seat. Now, speaking of seats, let's hop out. Hopefully the rain is kind to us, and talk about the seat controls. So this particular X5 does have multi-function seats, which means you get a couple more adjustments here. So from left to right, you have your lumbar support. You can inflate, deflate, move up your back, move down your back for the lumbar. This button here, if you press it to the left, it will tighten up. Hopefully that shows on camera. Tighten up the side bolsters, or you push it to the right and it will loosen up those side bolsters to give you a little bit more or less space depending on what you like. This button is for your extendable thigh support. You can go forward or backward with the seat, as well as tilt it down and then tilt it up. This button on top of the main control here will adjust the upper part of the backrest independent of the rest, so your shoulders can get a little bit more extra support, shoulders and neck. This button does just what you would expect. You can go, tilt your backrest forward and back. And then this button also goes up and down for your headrest. You can go up and down with the headrest. Those are the seat controls, but speaking of the headrest, these are even more adjustable. You can sort of pinch that in so you get a little bit more support. It can cradle your head really nicely. And while we're in the area of driver's footwell, you have your hood release. Pull twice to open your hood, and you have your little secret compartment here. There is a button down there, so we have to press it to open up your little hidden storage compartment. All right, back inside the X5, let's talk about some more buttons. Your headlight controls, this is new for BMW, so these are definitely different from what you might know on current BMWs if you have anything older than like a 23 or a 24. So the headlight controls have this one button over here on the left. Now this style of button, you can see it has those 3 lines on it. This style of button's becoming, it's proliferating across the BMW lineup. These 3-line buttons or sandwich buttons are all over on the iX, the 7 Series, but they're just starting to trickle their way into normal models. And what they do is press it, and it will bring up the menu on your iDrive screen for the corresponding picture on that button. So you see you have a little light there, and it will bring up your exterior lighting menu. So in here you can press this now, and then you get all your different lighting controls, although the main controls are still on the actual hardware piece down here. So auto headlights, for your low beams, you can turn those on or off with this button. Then you can just turn everything off with those buttons. So those are the only physical headlight controls you have. You can bring up your additional menu, which can then do in the screen things like parking lights and stuff like that. You have your auto button for your low beams, and then you have your all off button for your headlights. Now, there is another headlight control here on the turn signal stalk. Press that, and you will get your automatic high beams. Now, that won't do anything during the daylight here, but when it's dark out, press that, and you'll have your auto high beams. So if there's oncoming traffic, the high beams will turn off. If there's nobody coming, the high beams will activate. Now, another control in this area is your steering wheel adjustment. So this is electronic. You push it, exactly where you would expect to push it to move your steering wheel around. You have your tilting, telescoping steering wheel, so you can get super comfortable with your driving position here. Also over on your turn signal stalk, you have the BC button there. So if we click that, you can see it brings up our trip computer, our odometer, and our live fuel economy readout there in the gauge cluster. So BC will bring that up in the gauge cluster. This is also, of course, your turn signal stalk. You can go, left, right. Everybody knows how that works. You can also do light clicks if you just want 3 blinks in either direction for lane changes and stuff like that. The other stalk on the other side of the steering wheel is particularly useful on a day like today. This is for your windshield wipers, so you go up once to go into auto mode. The green light will indicate that you're in auto mode. You go up again for low intermittent, then you go all the way up for high intermittent wipers. You can go back down to the resting position to turn everything off. This little dial here will adjust the sensitivity of the wipers while they're in auto mode. So if you go all the way up, they're going to be super sensitive. Even the lightest little mist on your windshield will trigger them. If you go down here, they're not going to be quite as sensitive, and it will take a little bit more significant rain to get those auto wipers to trigger. I'm not sure if I said this already, but you can go down once, real quick like that for a single wipe. Twist that forward to get your rear wiper going, and then twist it even more like that to spray your rear wiper. If you want to spray the front, push forward, pull forward towards you, just like how you would expect, just like all wiper stalks. So those are your stalks. More buttons that aren't quite on the steering wheel but are, steering wheel adjacent buttons. You have your shift paddles. So these work to control the transmission. You have your upshift paddle if you'd like to go up a gear, and your downshift paddle if you would like to drop a gear, downshift, or upshift. So upshift, downshift paddles. These also have some hidden functions. You can pull in to activate sprint mode. that will automatically drop the transmission into the lowest acceptable gear to give you maximum power for a quick lane change or something like that. And then this button, if you hold it down while you're already in manual mode, it will go back to automatic mode. We can actually demonstrate that. We'll put the car in manual mode so you can see we have the number next to the D there because we're in manual mode, but if I hold down this right shift paddle, the number goes away and we're back in automatic mode. So that is how the paddle shifters work. Let's talk about the actual steering wheel. The biggest button is the horn. That works just as you would expect. We have some buttons over here on the right side of the steering wheel. These are all pretty much media controls with the exception of this one, which will bring up a menu in the gauge cluster. So let's start there. Press that and we get our iDrive, our gauge cluster configuration menu. So if we press, see if I can frame it so you can see me pressing and the menu at the same time. So if I press this button, we get the menu. Then we can use this little black wheel to scroll through the menu. You have your content on the left, so that's what you want to see in the menu. You have your layout, how you want the gauge cluster to look. And then you have your heads-up display, which will let you configure the heads-up display there. That's really tough to see on camera with the rain. Sorry about that, but trust me, that configures your heads-up display. And then you can press that button again and the menu goes away. Now, the buttons on the steering wheel do different things when you have the menu up and when you don't. So if you press this first, these buttons here will control the menu. But if you don't press that and you press these buttons, these now are skipping left and right through your radio stations. So that's skip track forward. As you can see, we're scrolling through our radio stations, or you can skip track backwards and we'll go backwards. So if you're listening to the radio, these will go back and forth for your radio stations, or if you're listening to music from your phone, these will go back and forward in the songs in your playlist. Now, this wheel also has an additional function if you don't press that button first, and it's in the heads-up display. If we scroll that, you can see extremely blurry. You can see that I'm scrolling through radio stations in the heads-up display there. Maybe, will this help? Focus. There we go. So you can scroll through radio stations with the little black wheel, and then you can use the skip track buttons to go to different radio sources and stuff like that. So lots of different controls, things to do with these buttons over here. Also, this button here, if you are receiving a phone call and you press it, it'll answer the phone. If you're on the phone and you press it, it'll hang up. Or, back to the heads-up display, it will bring up your recent calls. We have no phone connected, but it will bring up your recent calls there. And you can scroll through your recent calls and push in to select to call somebody. This button is your BMW personal assistant. So if you're not using Apple CarPlay, you press it once and then you can make phone calls, use the navigation system, make climate control adjustments. That's if you're not using Apple CarPlay. If you are using Apple CarPlay, this button with a single press like that will no longer be able to make phone calls for you. Instead, you'll have to hold it down and get Siri from your phone. So quick summary on that: if you press it in once, you get BMW Personal Assistant. If you press it and hold it, you get Siri from your phone, depending on how your phone is connected to the car. Lastly, over here, volume up and volume down. These two little pluses and minuses right here are super straightforward. Moving along to the left side of the steering wheel here, we have all of our cruise controls. So press this button to activate your cruise control. This button will set the speed, and then this button will toggle between your different cruise control modes. This button here, this little toggle switch, has two sort of levels to it. So you press up lightly, just like that, to increase your cruise speed by a 1 mile an hour increment, or you can press up all the way to increase your cruise control speed by a 5 mile per hour increment. So that's your speed adjustment for cruise control. Resume will resume the cruise control. If you interrupt it by pressing the brake pedal, you can resume cruise there, or if you want to cancel cruise briefly, you can click cancel there to cancel your cruise control. So that's everything on the steering wheel. We're going to move to the center here now, starting with the air vents, which are new for the X5. These have been in the X7 for a year. You also now see these on the 7 Series. So these vent styles are sort of spreading across the BMW lineup. I'm sure we'll see it in future models, but in the X5, they work like this. You twist it to the left like that to shut off airflow from that vent. So your vents are sort of hidden back here. And if you don't want any air to come out, twist it to the left, or if you do want air to come out, twist it to the right. So open, closed. Now you can also use these switches here to direct airflow. So if you want to sort of move the direction of the airflow, you do it with this little toggle switch here. So that's true of all 4 little toggle switches on the X5 for your air vents there. Now, moving down a little bit, you can see in the center console, if you just sort of get a broader look at it, there's really not a lot to talk about as far as buttons to press here. But we are going to go over the digital climate control buttons because they're not technically, hard buttons, but they are climate controls, and that's stuff that people use quite a bit. So let's go over them. So to bring up your climate controls, you always have the climate menu here. No matter where you are in the iDrive 8 screen, you will always have a climate menu to press. So press that to bring up all your different climate controls, and then from here you have a bunch of buttons to choose from. So if we click all climate functions there on the left, that will activate everything. That's sort of your master on-off switch for your climate controls. Then as we move through here from left to right, we have heated steering wheel. You can toggle those up and down with the pluses and minuses. I'm going to turn off the climate control here just so it's a little bit quieter. You have your heated seat. You have, if you had ventilated seat, that would show up right next to it. You have your fan speed, you have your air direction or airflow style, and then you have the same stuff over here on the right. Now, I'm going to turn these on again just to show you that the button here, pay attention to this button when I press auto. So it's auto on, auto off. Now you see how that button changes. So if auto is on, this button will decide if you want balanced or dynamic airflow. Or if auto is off, it will just be the normal, do you want top, middle, or bottom vents, just like the older style of climate controls had. So that will change depending on how you're using the climate control, but still pretty straightforward. Also along the top are our auto buttons for both passenger and driver. AC on or off, max AC, you can sync both zones. And then finally we have our temperature adjustment, temperature down, temperature up, temperature down, temperature up for driver and passenger individually. So those are your climate controls. You also have your recirculation over here as well. I generally recommend setting that on auto. So those are the only things in the screen we're going to talk about. Again, we're talking about hard buttons here, hard controls, but climate controls, those might as well be, treated like hard buttons because they're used so frequently. So let's move down here. This button, of course, is for your volume knob. Press in to mute your volume, your radio, or press it if the radio is already muted. Press it again to turn things on. Scroll to the right to turn up your volume. Scroll to the left to turn down your volume. Everybody knows how a volume knob works. Left and right for your radio stations or your tracks in your playlist. That's the same as these buttons here. Hazard lights, just like that. This whole, see if you can see, sort of the whole bezel that this button's in moves in when you press that. It's kind of cool. Same with these buttons. So max front defrost and your rear defroster as well. Those are the center console buttons. No buttons to be had down here. Just some storage, wireless charger, USB-A, and a charge port, your old school 12 volt there. Let's move down into the center console here. So on the right, this will look pretty familiar to current BMW owners. This is your iDrive controller. So this works sort of like a joystick. If you're not familiar with it, you can go left, right, up, or down. Then you can press in to select. You can also scroll it clockwise or counterclockwise to navigate the menu. So I'll show you how that works. If we look up at the screen, scrolling clockwise goes down, scrolling counterclockwise goes up. Push in to select, go to the left to sort of jump to the left menu, go to the right to jump to the right menu, and you can sort of navigate the screen like that. Using this controller definitely becomes second nature if you're used to BMWs and you're around them often. You do have some shortcut buttons, as you can see here. We have media, telephone, home, map, and nav. We have back and option down here. These all jump you to different things in the center screen here. So if I press media, we get our media. If I press phone, it brings us to our phone. Home brings us home. Map brings us to a map. And nav brings us to our destination input. So all that is super straightforward. Back will just take you to the screen you were previously at. And option is sort of like right click, does a different thing depending on what you're doing in the screen there. So that's your iDrive controller. On some X5s and most X7s, all X7s actually, You'll have your air suspension here, but in the X5 it's blank, just a sort of blank black plastic there. This is your parking brake, so foot on the brake and pull up to activate. You see the red light. Foot on the brake, push down to deactivate. That's your parking brake. Auto H here stands for auto hold, so we can actually demonstrate how this works. If you're in drive, which we are now, and I let off the brake, we start moving forward. If I press this and we're in drive still and I let off the brake, we don't go anywhere. So that will hold you in place at a stoplight or when you're sitting in traffic or something like that. So that's definitely a nice feature to reduce fatigue, specifically in stop and go traffic. This is hill descent control. This is sort of like an off-road cruise control, sort of how I like to describe it. Casually, it will only be active under 21 miles an hour, so low speeds, and it's really intended to help prevent you from getting out of control down a snowy driveway, a muddy hill, anything like that. Hill descent control will help use the traction control system and the brakes and whatnot to sort of keep you in line. Eco Pro, Comfort, and Sport are your 3 drive modes, so Eco Pro will help save fuel economy. It will also change your gauge cluster a little bit, so that's Comfort, that's Eco Pro. You can see things get blue to signify fuel savings. Comfort is Comfort, and then Sport, things go red, of course, for Sport. That will sharpen throttle response, stiffen the steering, and whatnot. So those are your 3 drive modes. You have your engine start-stop button, so turn off the car, turn on the car. You have a blank switch here. This button is for your parking sensors, so you press that and it brings up your parking menu. You have your backup camera overhead, and then from here you can go to your 3D view, which you can then control with these little white tabs, or you can just scroll the iDrive knob here. You can see as I scroll, the camera rotates, and then you have your basic parking view, which comes up every time you put the car in reverse. So there's your parking button. The last button down here is traction control. So press once and it will bring up the menu. Kind of works like the sandwich button for the headlights. It brings up the menu in the center screen. So does the traction control button. DSC is dynamic stability control. You will have that on by default, but if you ever want to turn it off, press traction and then go to DSC off for your donuts and drifting needs in your X5. That's DSC off. Realistically, DSC off can sometimes be useful if you're in a really sticky situation and you don't want the car's traction control system to sort of hamstring you. If you need the wheels to spin for whatever reason, if you're really stuck somewhere, sometimes that can be an advantageous thing to use. Traction mode is for loose ground, so dirt roads, things like that. If you think you need it, it will help the car be a little bit more stable and have a little bit better traction on loose surfaces, snow, dirt roads, things like that. So those are all of your buttons in the center console. We have one big button here, which opens up our storage cubby. No further buttons in there. So that's pretty much it for the front of the X5, at least on the lower portion. But if we look up, we do have a couple more buttons. Some of them are a little bit hidden. You have your driver, garage door opener. So you have 1, 2, and 3. You just press and hold those to open your garage door after you sync it up. Moving up a little bit, we have our dome lights, or map lights, whatever you like to call them, for driver, passenger, and then both in the middle there. If we press this button, it's for our sunroof. We can just pull it back once, and you can see the shade goes back all the way, and then we don't want to do it today, but if you pull it back again, this front portion here will open up for your sunroof. We can do push up to tilt, push down to close like that. So those are your sunroof controls. You have your SOS button. This is the one button we don't want to press, but you can open up the cover like this, and then actually we can press it and then cancel it. But that will make an emergency call if you need BMW's roadside assistance or anything like that. That's your SOS button. So that, now that we've touched on those controls up there, will do it for the front seat of the X5, but as we hop in the back seat, we'll see that there are a few more buttons to touch on. So let's jump in the back. All right, back seat of the X5 does not have a whole lot of buttons to talk about, but there are some. So in the interest of being thorough, let's start pressing some buttons. So window down, I have it locked out up there. You can see that little green light. This is our previous learning in action. You can see that that will lock out the rear window, so that won't work, but if that light wasn't on, this would be your window switch, obviously. Now, there is sort of a hidden button on the actual outside of the door. That is your child lock. So you can see here, there's a little picture of a child. Flip up and the interior door handle will not work, or flip down to allow the interior door handle to work. So that's an important switch for a lot of owners, so important to know where that is. Now, this particular X5 does not have rear climate control. If it did, you would have temperature, fan speed, and air direction sort of buttons, your basic gamut of climate control buttons in the back here, and they would be located right here where this storage cubby is. But don't have those in this one. You do have some sort of rudimentary climate controls. You do have a temperature dial here, as well as your fan, your vent opening and closing dials here. So you do have some climate controls, even if you don't get the 4-zone climate comfort package. In the back of the seat rest here, we have a little latch we can open up. Get a lot of questions about this. This is an accessories holder for BMW accessories. So if you have the BMW iPad holder, coat hook, or whatnot, it attaches in that switch there, and then you have USB-C for charging. You have 2 more USB-Cs down there, as well as a 12-volt power outlet. Now, not much more to talk about in the back here, with the exception of some, maybe not quite buttons, but things you can open and latches and whatnot. So let's just go over those. You have your fold-down center armrest here, which reveals either a nice little padded armrest here, or a storage cubby and some cup holders, which have sort of interesting adjustability function here. So you can sort of like tilt that up or go down to open them a little bit wider. So those are your rear cup holders. And then this one here, this little latch, if you pull that, will allow you to fold the center seat forward individually for ski pass-throughs and things like that. Some little latches down here. These are your Isofix anchors for car seats. Those pop open super easily. Now, that will do it for the back seat of the X5, but let's go take a look in the trunk, because there are some buttons to talk about there. All right, so opening up the trunk of the X5, you have your little button right in there. Now, you can set it in the iDrive screen. Do you want it to open the top, the bottom, or both? This one's obviously now set to the top, but you just press that button to fold down your tailgate, which we're going to fold back up actually, so I can actually access the trunk here. Now, not a ton of buttons back here, really none at all, just sort of switches and latches and whatnot. You have a little grocery bag holder here. You have your area for a first aid kit or a tire mobility kit, all depends on how your particular X5 is equipped. You have your cargo cover, which you can pull and then secure into that little spot there. You have the same stuff over here on the right, except you also have a 12-volt power outlet there, and then you can lift this up for your storage cubby. This is where a spare would be if you had it equipped. Tow hooks, stuff like that is all down here. This is also your storage area for your cargo cover there. If you want to take that out, you put it down here. Now, there are some sort of hidden buttons in the back of the X5 here, particularly up here. Tough to see. There's a button right here that you press to release your cargo cover. So I just press that. Now I can release that to take it out. If I want to leave it there, just push it back into place, and now it's not going anywhere. So that's your cargo cover release. If you want to fold down the seats of the X5, you can sort of do it from the trunk, but it's best to do it from the back seat. But that latch is up there. I'll show you how to do that from the back seat, because it's just better to do it that way. But before we go back there, close the trunk and close and lock. We'll just close it for now. But in the back seat, here is your rear seat fold down button there. I guess we missed a button here. This is for your headrest. If you want to fold that up or down, you can do it just like that. All right, so that is going to do it for this video on the 2024 X5, pressing every single button and control in a 24 X5. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please like it and subscribe to the channel if you think we deserved it. We really appreciate that. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at BMW of Morristown. And if you have any questions about this video or any suggestions for future videos, please drop those down in a comment below. But I'm going to get out of the rain. I'll leave you guys there, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.